Hi, and welcome to High Value Writing. I'm Erin Lebax. Thank you for being here. And many thanks to user fan 1002 who made a request for a video on how to write a position paper for school. And you can always make a request at this channel, and we'll bring out some videos to help you with whatever you're writing. So user fan 1002 is writing a position paper for school. This video will mostly concern academic position papers. However, I will be bringing in tips throughout and another slide at the end to show how you could use this information for a professional position paper as well. All right, so we're going to look at the outlines, the steps, examples of each, and then we are going to talk about style briefly at the end. For this type of writing, in addition to sounding clear and concise, we also need to sound confident. So stay tuned for those tips coming up. Let's get started by figuring out the goals of this kind of writing. Let's get started by talking about the goals of this kind of paper. Again, usually written academically, but I'll bring in some ideas in the business world as well. We have two sets of goals here, okay? We have our content goals of what we need to say, and then we also have a goal of sort of how we want to come off in this paper. We want to sound very confident about our position. We also do not want to sound dismissive of other positions, because that can actually eat away at the confidence that we are projecting, believe it or not. So we're going to be fair and objective about all views, but really provide the evidence for why our position is the most feasible, the most beneficial. So at the top here, we have an outline of sorts. The next slide will put this into more outline format, but we are going to, of course, say what our point of view is in the beginning and support it. Why is it desirable? Why is it feasible? Why is this a possible idea? Then, though, we need to be responsible, right? We need to show that we are fair and ethical by considering who will be impacted by our position and who else might have a different point of view. And again, we don't really, it sounds almost counterintuitive, but if we act sort of dismissive or reductive about these other views, it can actually make us look less self-confident. So we want to be clear, concise, confident all the way, even when we're talking about other views. In the end, of course, with number 5, we're going to wrap up and show, well, our view is the way forward to meet the goals that we're after. Now, below that on the screen, if you're in a business setting, but also kind of thinking about at school, what is your teacher really wanting you to be able to do? It's not just the content, but the way we do it, right? We want to be able to show that we can take a stance, that we can be persuasive, but that we can be fair when we do that. And you can imagine in school, this is a critical thought requirement, right? I am able to think about different sides and be fair. You know your teacher's looking for that critical thought. If you're at work, this is showing that we can be good with others and collaborative, right? We can show our view and respect others. So we always need that sort of meta goals where we're not only saying what we're saying, but it's about how we say it too, right? And then making sure that we are ethical, provide evidence, and I'll link a few times in this video to other videos where I've talked about maybe how to do a thesis, how to cite a source, etc. So here's the content. As you start your paper, you want to be thinking about your point of view, what's good about it, what's feasible, possible about it, and then how are you going to address these other points of view graciously as well. In outline form, here's something you can follow, especially in a school setting. In the introduction, I'll point to another video where we covered those steps, but I'm going to have an example in here too if it's an intro for a position paper specifically. Your body paragraph, of course, you'll do that multiple times. Often you'll see people dividing up their body paragraphs based on different benefits, different reasons that your idea is beneficial. That's usually the way we want to approach this. Or we can divide it up different groups of people or groups across the planet, whatever it might be that'll be benefited. Environmental benefits, financial benefits, societal benefits, things like that as well. And then our conclusion will again point to our solution as the best one, but in a way that acknowledges others and then kind of brings everyone together for our next steps moving forward. Okay, so the next 3 slides will provide an example of each as well as an extra slide with examples on thesis statements. So let's look at how all those parts kind of want to look in this type of paper. For your introduction, and I'm going to put a link up here so that if you'd like, you can go watch the video on writing an academic introduction. So you can use that here. Similar steps. What I do want to spend more time on in this case, though, is that idea of addressing multiple perspectives is more important in a position paper, because you know going forward that you are presenting a position and there may be people with other positions. So we want to be ready to debate, ready to respect, but also ready to persuade. So here we'll see me using these 3 steps, leading up with an intro, bringing in those perspectives, and then offering a thesis that in this case needs to be quite persuasive. We are not writing an informative thesis. We are not writing a thesis that sounds like a question. We are writing for a position paper a thesis that sounds like a claim or an argument that is debatable. Here's an intro leading up to that. As AI becomes a more and more popular writing tool, students around the world will start turning to AI with help for their essays. In some cases, AI will help them, adding detail and helping the writer explain examples. However, students using AI in essays also run the risk of sounding inauthentic or too wordy in their writing. Some people may not like the idea. Students can succeed by using AI to help generate ideas, but writing or revising on their own to ensure their writing tone matches their writing goals. So we see those steps in action. Let's look now, what would a body paragraph look like? All right, let's dive in a little bit deeper on this one part of our outline and introduction, which is that thesis statement. A few things to keep in mind with a position paper. Our thesis statement needs to sound confident, and it needs to be something that could be debated. We cannot make a thesis that says, eating oatmeal every day and lots of spinach is healthy. That's kind of just a fact, right? We need something here that is a position, meaning someone else could have a different position. Keep these 3 things in mind in your thesis. The most important, or the most often overlooked anyhow, that idea of relevance. Why does this matter? Why is this crucial? How does this impact somebody? And so you'll see in the examples here in the pink, there is some relevance brought in. And so I'll just read these 4 aloud and you can kind of listen for how they do sound like they're taking some kind of a stance that we could defend and that someone could disagree on. To help students compete in today's economy, universities should provide training in the fair use of AI. Could someone disagree? Certainly. Based on data from the last decade, further floods may threaten this area, making the need for safety training indispensable. Maybe somebody could not argue or debate the data, but they could debate what we should do now that we have this data. That makes it a position paper. Our organization, here's a little more of a business orientation. Our organization supports open access to information. Therefore, we list all salaries publicly. And lastly, to support our clients better during the pandemic, our department suggests we open a hybrid lobby. Again, more of a business example. Again, something I could bring to a committee if I'm in that professional setting to explain, support what I'm advocating, and then someone could agree or disagree, and I could pursue this further with my position paper. So let's look at what most of the paper is going to look like, the paragraphs in the middle, right? The body paragraphs. And this is where in a position paper, we are consistently thinking about evidence and examples. We cannot claim something without showing it. And we are continuing to think about tone, how we want to be confident and yet concise. And we'll look at some tips on that in a moment as well. But here's what I advise you include in each paragraph. Your view, the benefit, some benefit or factor that you're looking at in this paragraph with your evidence and examples, and then see what you can address in terms of other points of view for that specific feature, component, benefit that you're talking about. So here I go, getting a little more in depth with a paragraph on AI use with students. While some students will use AI in their writing regardless of requirements, we can help them do this responsibly by teaching how to write with AI. Platforms like ChatGPT have been found to help students generate ideas and first drafts. This is where I would have a citation. Here's a link to a video that includes a packet and other information on writing citations. By providing teaching on these skills, we can encourage responsible AI use. Now I'm going to address another point of view, even though it's not the one I'm advocating here. Although some instructors have urged the banning of AI from student writing, teaching students to use AI responsibly in their writing is both more realistic and more effective, coming back to the central view that I'm putting forward, especially considering that some will use AI writing once on the job market. So each paragraph is doing that job of moving your point a little bit forward because you've gotten into one specific reason or detail and you've brought in specific examples that also help you counter these other arguments that are coming in while still treating them respectfully, but showing why they are not the optimal way to go forward. Now we'll conclude, and then we'll have a couple more slides to look at. Number one, on style. And then secondly, if you are in more of a business setting, how can you tweak some of this information? So for the conclusion, we're looking again, not just restating our thesis, but you know what? Implementation is necessary. We really need this to move forward because of these positive impacts, which I will restate. And when relevant, it's now my job to suggest what might we do first. We don't want to leave our conclusion where the reader feels like, so what, right? Okay, you repeated what you said, what now? So that so what is often answered by what is one step forward that we could feasibly make. Okay, I'm wrapping up my thoughts on AI in the classroom. Although encouraging students to use AI in their writing poses the risk of increasing plagiarism, I'm addressing another point of view here. Students must have the skills to use AI responsibly and ethically in their future careers. By facing the issue and discussing it with students, we will get better results than by simply attempting to ban AI use in student writing. And now I do feel like it's my job to suggest a next step since I'm putting this forth. To this end, we propose a new unit on writing with AI in all semester level writing courses. I have not only stated my position, but in a way, thought about how to get us started moving to it. And now some style tips, which are so important in this kind of writing because we need to, at the same time, sound respectful of all views and sound not at all wishy-washy about our view being the one that's really the best, right? So now we need to make sure that in addition to being clear and concise, we are not using what I call maybe language. That's the kind of language that's like, well, it's just an idea. I'm not sure, but I thought maybe. Right? We want to just avoid that. And that is the type of language that can make us sound less confident anyway. So we don't really want that language in there. So following these 4 suggestions will actually make our writing sound more confident and ensure that we don't sound insecure and that our ideas don't sound insecure either. We're going to avoid that maybe language. Use active voice where you say who's doing something before they're doing it. Avoiding slow lead-ins that actually eat away at the confidence the writer puts forward, right? As I'm waiting as the reader for the point, I'm kind of like, well, does this writer know what they want to say or what, right? We do not want to do a slow lead-in when we're trying to sound confident. And then, of course, I always advocate writing with a who, what sentence structure. This is the same as active voice. For people who aren't in love with grammatical jargon, putting who and what in the beginning of your sentence will make your sentence more brief, more concise, and more bold and confident. Here are some before and afters. You can see with the color coding what I've changed in those areas. It has come to our attention that one idea is to possibly consider looking at this from the interview candidate's perspective, which has been found to often be unaddressed. Found by whom, I wonder? That's the problem with passive voice here. With the after, I've adjusted those 4 things. We've historically overlooked the interview candidate's perspective. Let's look at that now. I sound confident and like I'm moving forward. However, I'm not bashing or being disrespectful either, but I have not reduced my own respect by using maybe language. All right, let's look at how to put this into practice in a professional setting, and then we'll wrap up. For those of you writing in a professional or business setting, you can use everything this video offers, but I will suggest a few areas of emphasis, or what you want to prioritize might be slightly different than with an academic position paper. If you are stating the business of your department, your unit, yourself, your entire organization, make sure you're emphasizing internal data a little bit more. With the academic paper, we're looking for examples that support our point, but when we're advocating a position in a team, we have to be very attuned to what impacts it might have in the team. So we want more internally based data, more internal stakeholders, what is going to happen to them when we make this change, who will be impacted, and considering units that will be impacted negatively, and then having a plan for that, right? Also, use more formatting, headings, bullets, keep things ultra brief. Even more in a business setting, we want brief paragraphs. It's okay to use bullets in the middle of a position paper. And lastly, you also want to consider other resources here that we're not considering in the academic paper, namely use of time, use of personnel, potentially money, and other resources need to take a little bit more of a front seat. So when we talk about examples and evidence, you want more of those to come from internally in a position paper that's written for business. All right, try out these tips, folks. Please let me know what questions you have, whether you're writing for school or work. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I wish you the best with your position paper.